Now, problems for the car industry continue with new registrations in June down by a quarter. It means the first half of the year was the second worst for the car sector in the last 30 years. And even the one bright spark recently, sales of plug-in hybrid or electric vehicles, saw growth slow. Joining us now is Robert Forrester, CEO of Virtue Motors, which trades as Macklin Motors in Scotland and operates 160 dealerships across the UK. Good afternoon to you, Robert.
Good afternoon, Hayley.
What sort of impact are you seeing on the forecourts?
Well, we're seeing customers coming in wanting new cars. There's actually strong demand for electric vehicles presently and reasonably good demand for new cars in general. But they're having to wait a significantly long period in a lot of cases for new cars because of lockdown-related production problems. Ever since the lockdowns ended, we've seen major issues in global supply chains, major problems on areas like semiconductors, which have impacted production in Europe and across the globe. And now we've got the Ukrainian crisis, which has just exacerbated the lack of components available for the manufacturers to build the cars that have been ordered.
So you've got the orders, but the customers just can't get the cars. How many people are willing to just sit and wait, or what are they doing maybe instead?
Well, I have to be honest with you, I'm really surprised, but the vast majority of customers are ordering the car and waiting, which I wouldn't have expected a few years ago, but a lot has changed in the last couple of years, and people are seeing the new models coming out. If you take electric vehicles now, the range on an electric vehicle is much better than it was 2 or 3 years ago, and people are willing to wait for those cars. Cars are exceptionally well built, loads of new technology in, and people are waiting for the new car.
And how long are those waits on average?
In some cases, I was thinking on average probably 3-4 months probably, but some cases 12 to 18 months.
And how are you seeing, what are sales of electric cars like? It seems that the hybrids are not selling as well at the moment, but full electric cars are doing better.
Well, it all depends where you're starting from. Hybrids are the vast majority of electric powertrains. Hybrids are definitely the most popular. It's certainly true that battery electric vehicles or pure electrics have increased significantly over the last few years, but you've got to remember it's from a very, very low base. So hybrids are the predominant powertrain, but as range gets extended on pure battery electric vehicles, then we are seeing increased demand for them. But bear in mind, when there's a shortage of global semiconductors and electric vehicles require a lot more semiconductors than a petrol or diesel car, then actually the move to electric actually exacerbates the problems around semiconductor supply.
Okay, and do you see any indication that those supply problems are going to ease in the near future?
Well, it depends what you define by near future. I think we are now getting better mood music from the global manufacturers. Certainly Ukraine has been a problem with wiring harnesses, but I think the manufacturers are working their way through the semiconductor and the other problems, and I would anticipate hopefully by the start of 2023 we'll get back to something more like normal, but it's certainly going to be problematic for the rest of this calendar year.
And does this mean that the cost of second-hand cars is going to remain high?
Well, yes, I think. It just depends at what level. So where there's a constrained situation in new cars, it means there's a shortage of used cars, which will be good for used car pricing. But we have seen used car prices come down by about 2% a month for the last 4 or 5 months. So used car prices are starting to normalise, but they're still substantially higher than where they were 12 months ago. So if you've got a car in your drive now, it is probably worth a lot more than it was 12 months ago.
Okay, but then I suppose the downside is if you want to sell and buy a new one, then you're going to be paying out more than you would have done as well.
Yes, but you can't have everything.
Okay, well, that's true. Robert, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Robert Forrester there, CEO of Virtue Motors, or Macklin Motors as you would know it in Scotland.